Life doesn't pause when you're sick. Vaccines against respiratory illnesses can help protect you and give you more playtime with your best friend. Depending on age and health status, vaccinations for flu, COVID-19, RSV, or pneumococcal infection may be recommended. Vaccines can help keep you from having a rough time. Learn more at cveep.org/vaccines-protect. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and CVEEP, fighting infectious respiratory disease.
Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the great human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. So happy to have you here today, folks. Listen, we've got a really great interview today. It's a powerful story. It's something that I think if you get your hands on, it can be really helpful for all of you listening, and an interesting story around this guest discovering her Enneagram type, some in real time with us today on the show. I'm talking about Jenny Wood, a former Google executive, leadership coach, and New York Times best-selling author of the brand new book, Wild Courage, Go After What You Want and Get It. I'm reading this book right now, folks. In her book, Jenny shares 9 unconventional traits that power some of the world's most resilient and high-performing people. Sounds like an Enneagram 3, right? Over her 18-year career at Google, she rose from entry-level to COO roles, leading global teams across the Americas, Asia, and Europe, as the company grew from 6,000 to 180,000 employees. Crazy amounts of growth. She gives these secrets away in her book now, okay? Jenny also founded Own Your Career, one of Google's largest ever internal career programs. She talks about this in the book, reaching more than 56,000 employees in nearly 100 countries. Her thought leadership has been featured in Harvard Business Review, CNBC, Forbes, Business Insider, Entrepreneur, and Inc. Also, really fun today, Jenny is joined by her chief of staff, an Enneagram practitioner, and she's helped Jenny prepare for this interview and joins us, as well as I've said, Carlina Daugherty. So happy to have them both here. They're both Enneagram Threes. Super pumped to have them on the show. Today, we talk about Jenny coming into the revelation that she is an Enneagram 3 and what that means. We talk about the strengths of the 3, the shadow of the 3, and we talk about her brand new book, which again, as I said, I'm reading it, loving it. You're going to love this interview, folks. Glad you're here. That's it for me, Anthony Skinner. And now, without any further ado, here's the man of the hour, Ian Cron.
Hey, Typology Tribe, we're thrilled to have you back this week. We are going to jump into really a remarkable conversation with our new friends, Jenny Wood, newly discovered 3 with a 2 wing, and Carlina Daugherty. She too is an Enneagram 3. Jenny is the author of the new book, Wild Courage, Go After What You Want and Get It. Hey, you guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
I'm so pumped to be here.
So excited.
Well, we're thrilled with your enthusiasm. By the way, so it's so funny, right? Like I got a press kit, and I was going through it, and sometimes the press kit tells me the person's type without them telling me, right? So I don't know if you wrote the copy, but certainly you okayed the copy in the press kit, right? Right. And so here are some phrases from the press kit. Embracing your ambition, chasing after what you want, need to get ahead, to be successful, shatters conventional wisdom about achieving your goals, supercharge your success. And it goes on, and I could go through this and build influence with empathy, network confidently, self-promote with ease. Now, again, I understand copy and the publishing world and what's going on with it, but that is about as Enneagram 3 as you're going to find in terms of just language.
Yeah, and it's also the opposite of what my lowest ranking Enneagram numbers were, which were type 4 and type 9, right? Like there's nothing in there that's about peacemaking. There's nothing in there that's about kumbaya. So yes, it's marketing copy, but I agree it still has the vibe of 3 big time.
Yeah. Well, so give us the premise of the book, just an overarching premise, but then I want to dive into your own life. But so people have context. Tell us about Wild Courage.
Yeah, so I was at Google for 18 years. I grew from entry level to executive, and I saw a lot of people get stuck. And as I coached people, I ended up founding one of the biggest career programs in Google's 26-year history. And so through that, I'd coached tens of thousands of people. And I realized that it wasn't skill or talent or luck or their network or money that, determined whether people got ahead or didn't. It was their relationship to fear. It was fear typically at the root when people felt stuck. Typically their fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, fear of judgment by others, all things that come up for me as a 3, big time. And so Wild Courage is the process of feeling that fear and taking action anyway. And it's the set of tools that help you go after what you want and get it. Largely in a work environment, but it's applicable everywhere.
That's so interesting because, one of the things the Enneagram does is it reveals the basic fear of each Enneagram type. And for many of them, it's almost before they understand it, right? It's unconscious fear that's generating patterns of thinking, acting, and behaving that are self-limiting, right? At some level.
Yeah. And the other thing that's worth mentioning about this work of Wild Courage is it's rooted in 9 traits. I'm sure there's some tie here between the 9 traits and the 9 Enneagram types, but the 9 traits are weird, selfish, shameless, nosy, obsessed, brutal, manipulative, reckless, and bossy. So, it's reclaiming these 9 traits and using them in a sane and savvy way to supercharge your success, as you mentioned.
Right.
But I think there's some interesting stuff here just with the language of these 9 traits and what it means to take these traits too far, what the classic definition is versus the redefined element of it that I encourage people to explore.
Now, before we jump into your life experience, I want to ask you why Carlina is here today. So earlier today, you got a hold of my assistant and said, "Hey, would you mind if I brought my chief of staff onto the show with us?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever. Bring your dog, bring your cat, bring your chief of staff. I mean, what? Tell me why Carlina is here today. And by the way, Carlina, I'm thrilled you're here.
And the dogs are here too.
All right.
So Carlina is here because Carlina, as my chief of staff, we work hand in hand every day. We are in touch, 20, 30, 40 times a day. I guess it feels like we're partners, Carlina, but technically I pay you. You do things for my business and my book launch as my chief of staff. So I am your boss. Technically, you are an employee. And we're both 3s. And Carlina is really well versed in Enneagram. So she's been coaching me on the back end on just to get me up to speed on it. But I am so excited that you're here, Carlina, because you are also a 3, and I feel like it's a tale of 2 3s because I think there are a lot of ways that we approach work similarly, but then some ways that we are just completely different. So we're different flavors of 3, and I just find that fascinating.
Do you know what your wing is, Carlina?
That's where I do have a crisis in the Enneagram of knowing which. Okay. I probably more frequently operate out of the 2, but I'm happiest when I'm operating out of the 4 wing.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah,
Why? Tell me more.
2, when I'm there, it's often about people pleasing. And when I find myself in my 4, it's more about self-expression. And so I'm not pouring myself out for others. I'm actually expressing myself. And so sometimes there's a little tension between wanting to support and help others and express myself.
Yeah. So the goal there, we would probably, if I was doing coaching work with you, right, is to have you understand that bringing both wings into balance, so they're both operating at roughly the same voltage, would be ideal, right? Yeah. I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, I'm a 3 with a 4 wing, therefore I have no 2. It's like 3 and But actually, you have 2 wings. It's just one is dominant, and so the key is to maybe bring the other one up as high as the other, or tune one down and bring the other one up. It's interesting.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and I don't have to decide. I can be both, and ideally so.
Yeah, and you always have to tweak it, right? Because 2 always has the possibility of lapsing into people pleasing, or into codependency, or into all kinds of different unskillful patterns that are not particularly helpful. So you've been coaching Jenny on the Enneagram because this is kind of a new world for Jenny. And I want to hear two things. One is, what had you observed in Jenny up till now that you were like, this person's a 3? Because you're familiar with the Enneagram, right? And you're like, I'm sure that this is no surprise to you that Jenny is a 3. And what did you observe in Jenny? You were like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah, she is the most driven person I've ever met. And she has more stamina than anyone I've ever met in a way that sometimes tires me out. And so as a 3, but, I sometimes tell people that when I came to work for her, it was like therapy. I came from an environment, an industry that's in distress, and there's lots of operating out of fear. And I've never worked as hard, even coming from a super stressful, demanding environment. I've never worked as hard as I do working for Jenny, but I've never been happier. And I would never describe what I experience as stress. She is such a unique person in being able, she taps into that bossy side in her book, and being able to set really high expectations and drive excellence and go, 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 go without feeling like she's exhausting me. It's amazing, like her ability to do that.
So what is it about Jenny that makes it not feel like stress or overwhelmment?
She has the ability to always, and I'm so sorry, my dog is barking. It's probably
that's okay. I've got dogs.
We all have dogs.
So, to think strategically about mutual benefit. It's not just about what she needs to accomplish. It's also about what you're going to get out of it. And that's also tapping into that manipulative piece of, this is what I need, but hey, by the way, this is also going to serve you really well too. And she's super motivated about achieving both for all sides.
Got it. Jenny, you're a 3. You've now done some research on what a 3 is. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's, first of all, so fascinating to hear Carlina's initial thoughts on me being a 3. I also imagine, like when I built teams at Google, I would think about complementary skill sets or complementary personalities. So I would think 2 3s, we're going to butt heads, especially with the way that 3s are described as performers or so driven or just really, output oriented. And so I love the nuance within the 3. So I feel like Carlina and I are incredibly complementary and not in any way head-butting. And I never would have on paper thought that 2 3s, and we're basically a 2-person company. I mean, we have other people who work on the business, but it's mostly Carlina and I running the show. And I would never think that it would feel like such ease and such complementary work with 2 people of the same Enneagram type. But in terms of my own 3 vibe, yeah, you called me on it. I go after what I want and I get it. And some people are, it's like you see the word performer and you think, okay, well, it's not really about performing on stage. It's about producing. It's about wanting people to admire your work. It's about doing something incredible in the world and the fear or the shame of not doing that and, how that might get judged and living into your full potential and achieving greatness. But if you take the literal name of it, I actually do love to be on stage. I am a keynote speaker for a living. When I was a kid, I vacillated between wanting to be a brain surgeon, but really wanting to be a star on Broadway. So it's funny that it's literally calling me a performer. And some people just, they write, they're more introverted. And I technically come up as an introvert on Myers-Briggs, but that's another conversation. Just barely. But I really, really, really love giving keynotes to a room of 1,000 people and helping coach them to be better than they think they can be. And I think that wanting people to be better than they think they can be is probably another number that's at play there. And I see Carlina and you, Ian, nodding. So remind me the part where I am so deeply ambitious about helping others be great is remind me what part that is of the 3 or what part that is of the wing.
Yeah. So tell me what your subtype is. Do you know what it is? Is it social? Yeah, you're a social 3, right? That's what I would have said. And Carlina, what are you?
I'm self-pres.
Yeah, I was going to say that your energy is more self-pres. So the social 3 is the quintessential 3. And there we would say that the unconscious motivation of the 3, right? So what is it that is fueling those predictable habitual patterns of acting, thinking, and feeling that are 3, right? We would say it is that they have a need. So at a very deep level, an unconscious need to succeed, to appear successful, and to avoid failure at all costs. So one of the things you're going to learn, Jenny, was if you choose to go down the Enneagram wormhole more, and I would encourage you to, because most of my work is in the corporate space. So it's me working with executives and senior management teams and, helping them to understand the unique makeup of their teams or of their own personality style and how they can avoid the pitfalls. But one of the things you're going to learn along the way is that unlike StrengthsFinders or Myers-Briggs, these are either neutral or they're very descriptive. They don't necessarily tell you, they tell you what you do, but not necessarily why you do it. Right? And knowing why you do it is pretty darn important, right?
Yeah. And so go ahead, Ian. Was there more you wanted to say there?
No, I was just going to say, knowing that also with the Enneagram, if you're looking for flattery, it's not the best instrument to use, right? Because it actually is also going to reveal the shadow aspect of your type. Like there's a part of being a 3 that can be beautiful and wonderful if it's operating with self-awareness and wanting to, really become the highest expression of the type. And also that when you're on autopilot, it's a bit of a train wreck, right? Like it's as true with every type.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I can't stop thinking about ties to the 9 traits of wild courage here, but I'll just bring up this little anecdote, which is that each of the 9 traits has a trait trap, right? Like it's basically the shadow side of the trait. It's when you take that trait too far. And so I think what you're saying is you can take a 3 too far. And if you're on autopilot, you're a train wreck. Like, in reviewing my, shadow sides of this, it's things like I'm not always a terrific team player, or I can be deceitful, or I can be a workaholic. I might take shortcuts. I might regard my achievements as more important than people. And I'm saying these literally the things that are listed in the Enneagram report, things like being deceitful. I hope that I'm not oftentimes deceitful, but of course, maybe there are times where I exaggerate my achievements for the need of approval. And you mentioned, Ian, the why. And I've been thinking so much as I've gotten deeper into this. I'm already down the rabbit hole for sure. Is what was it about my upbringing that made me this way, right? What was it about my father's approval? It's always my father. My mother was a psychotherapist who was like much more gentle and much more encouraging, but it was my dad who was always either, just brutally honest, right? Like, no, that shirt doesn't look good on you, or your grades can be better than this, or, pushing. And then of course, how it related to like how me versus my sisters experienced our family and things like that. There's just so much to unpack here. And I actually saw my sister for the first time in 6 years this past Saturday. Wow. And something really stood out. So we have an estranged relationship, as you can imagine, having not seen each other really spoken in 6 years. And I took a selfie with her and me and my husband right when we got to her house. And I said, because I'm always saying to my kids, like, okay, turn this way, like a little tighter, right? And my kids have been having this habit of like their chins are really like up to the sky when I take a picture and it looks silly. So I keep saying to my kids, like, chin down. And I said it instinctively when we took the selfie. And I said, chins down. And she goes, always with the control. And it just like of the 45 minutes we spent together, it was like that, it cut me like a knife. And I think that's 3 in there, right? I think that's like the trying to optimize so that everyone looks great in the picture. And I meant no harm by it, but it really stuck with me. And I think there's some 3 element there of, optimization or performance even, right? I wanted us to perform in that picture.
Yeah, I love that you're being so self-honest because I trust me, Anthony and I have had 3s, 8s, all the types, right, on the show. And I'm listening and I'm like, this person is here really to, not really, how do I want to say this? Their interest in the Enneagram is not to interrogate their own inner world for their own sake, right? Like, so in other words, I just love that you're able to go, interesting. Look at this pattern in my life. And by the way, if you go down this wormhole, you will find many. And it will be disorienting in the beginning. You will be like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm like pulling a thread here and realizing there's a lot of other thread on the other side of it to be figured out.
Yeah.
It just interests me that you just connected with her after 6 years and you've just written this book on wild courage. Like, what kind of courage did it take for you to reconnect?
A lot. And I think the hardest part for me, which I'm sure is a bit of a 3 vibe as well, is what do I want this to look like? And how should this go? And what does the perfect relationship look like? And how can I optimize this? And you know, I'm also, maybe as a 3, maybe just as who I am, I guess a 3 is who I am, is it's really hard for me to keep things light and simple and step by step. Like, I had to have it all figured out, and I had to have the perfect plan and the perfect, you know, future relationship for us, and wanted to dig into everything that's happened over the last, you know, many decades. And I just had to try really hard. And I'm actually so proud of myself that it was a 45-minute walk, or maybe, you know, a little longer. And I kept it very light. And even that took courage to hold back on my desire to just like put it all on the table, like, you know, fight or flight, like go into fight immediately and just be like, blah, 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 why did all this happen, blah, blah, blah. And so I think it took courage for me in particular, wild courage, because what I need sometimes is the courage to keep things simple and just one step at a time, and live into the answer on what this relationship might be like or might not be like. And just, I'm proud of that, but it was hard. And I was really, really nervous going into it and had a lot of fear, and it just felt so much relief. I realized afterwards, you know, my husband and I were driving to dinner afterwards, and I was like, I haven't had an appetite all day. And now I finally do, because I can just like let go of that desire to morph this into something, and I'm just letting it be, which is very hard for me.
Yeah. Relationships don't respond necessarily very well to one party coming in with a set agenda, or like, you know, like it's so much of it is about learning to let go, right? Like,
which
just
is, not easy for me. Not easy for me. And like when she said that thing about always with the control, that was the exact phrase. You know, what it said to me was like all the times that I'm controlling, and all the ways that I'm controlling, you know, as a boss or as a partner or as a mom or as a friend or as a colleague or as a keynote speaker or a coach. And how do I work on that? Because it's really hard. It's really hard for me.
Yeah. So how do you work on it?
I don't know, Carlina, how do I work on my tendencies to control? What do you think?
Well, I think your curiosity, like you ask so many questions, and you, including inviting people to give you feedback, like all the time, just that pattern of welcoming feedback and receiving it so graciously, even when it's negative.
Yeah, well, we had a really interesting situation this past Friday. I have a new client. I mostly do executive coaching, but I have a new client who's working on a book launch. And I took her on because I thought, you know, this is fun. I spent 3 years learning how to have a huge book launch and hit the New York Times bestseller list. And I learned a lot. So I didn't feel confident in coaching on this. But Carlina's like, Jenny, you know so much, so you should take this client. And then Carlina followed up and said, actually, could I participate in this coaching? Because I think that I might want to help people with book launches in the future as like a growth opportunity for me to build my own thing. And I immediately went into fear. What did I say to you, Carlina? I'm worried I'm going to lose you. How do we handle the IP, right? How do we, what are some of the other things? Like, would it ever cannibalize my business? We decided probably not, because that's nothing I'm going to do as a bread and butter. But I did. I guess we got on a call 3 days ago, and I asked a lot of questions about kind of, you know, how you were thinking about this. And net, I'm super excited for you. And I'm here to help you build it however you can, because you'll be phenomenal at helping people build their audiences and launch books. And it's really not going to be my bread and butter. But I was absolutely leading from a place of fear when I initially heard Carlina's thoughts on like, ooh, could I participate in this? I might want to build this business one day. I was like, oh my gosh, don't leave me. But Carlina, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. And I left that call. And so you were leading in fear and what you might lose, but I left that call so encouraged because you were digging into, hey, what's motivating you? What else might you want to do? I think you asked me 3 times. And is there anything else in your ideal world that you would like to pursue or achieve? And you were using curiosity to answer those fears. And I left elated. Like I didn't have any sense that you were afraid.
That's so fascinating, because I even hung up from that call thinking, I totally overwhelmed you, Carlina. You could sniff my fear a mile away, right? But I think, openness in any working relationship is just so key. And we've always had that. And I value it tremendously. And again, it's like our threes coming from totally different angles here.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's a good picture. Go ahead, Ian. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say you are different threes because so Carlina is the counter type of the 3. So her subtype means that she appears like an upside down version of you, right? So the social 3 is driven by things like success through image, recognition, alignment with cultural ideals, right? So at Google, you would have been a genius at figuring out what are the cultural expectations and ideals of this company? How do I align with them? And then actually become the poster child for this organization.
Bingo. And that's why I started the Own Your Career program at Google, because I was like, I figured out how to navigate this system. This is a game. I know how to play the game, and I can teach others to play the game. And that's what the Own Your Career program was. And now, in Wild Courage, it's different content. It's more about how to have success in all areas of life. But you nailed it, Ian. That's exactly what I sought out to help people with.
Right. And so charismatic, polished, very skilled at reading the room, right? You can intuitively sense what others value and shape yourself to meet those expectations. This is if you're on autopilot, right? If you're not doing great, that's where the deceit is, right? You're kind of shape shifting in the moment to align with the expectations of the group or the organization. And then if you change, you leave that meeting and you go to another meeting with a whole different now you're with coders, and suddenly you're able to shape shift in that moment to become someone that perfectly aligns with what the coders want and or expect. You know what I mean? In other words, the deceit is really about eventually threes who aren't very healthy begin to actually buy their own BS. Like they deceive themselves. It's not others that they're deceiving so much as they deceive themselves into believing, oh, I am the person this image that I am projecting right now. I am actually that person. But it's actually not true. There's another true self, authentic self, that the 3 is kind of hiding typically, right? It's and so the image becomes self-hypnotic.
That's so interesting, because I'm also in a world now, and I guess I was as a leader at Google, where you do have some kind of an image. I mean, we all have some kind of an image we walk around with, right?
Sure,
but I actually, part of my business is my personal brand, right? Like posting on LinkedIn every day, having a weekly newsletter, giving keynotes. It's like there is this persona, which I think feels authentic. Like I think I'm generally no BS, and that I think that is part of, I'm very honest. I don't know. It does make me wonder, like, when am I putting on a facade and when am I just easing into who I am naturally? And I think in my line of work, where I am an author and a speaker and a thought leader, I have to make sure I'm keeping that in check.
Yes. And this kind of goes into the realm of metacognition, right? Thinking about your own thinking and being able to step back from your moment-to-moment experience and observe yourself. So this past weekend, I was speaking at a conference in Gasparilla Island, Florida, which is like this beautiful it was in this beautiful old world hotel, and it was lovely. I got done with my presentation. Now, I'm a 4, right? So I'm probably in the weird category of the 9, sort of traits, of successful people.
Absolutely. Yeah. We did a little mapping earlier today, and we mapped individualist to weird. Yes.
Yes. Well, but that's a social 4. Okay. So a self-pres 4, like me, actually looks more like a 3 or a 7.
Okay. Interesting.
So I have a 3 wing. So I have a lot of those qualities. So I got done doing this presentation. Now, I probably do 100 presentations a year, right? Like literally, right? And then I'm 65. I've been doing this a lot of time. I've been doing this for a long time, right? And I walked off the stage, and I started to step back from the experience and observe myself. And meditation and other practices have really trained me how to do this almost now instinctively and reflexively. I don't have to think to myself, I need to step back and observe. I just sort of start to do it. And what I observed was that I was walking around the room looking in everybody's eyes for validation.
Oh.
I was looking at people to make sure, do you love me? Do you like me? Do I belong here? Am I okay? And I was just observing myself doing that. And then I was able to go, this doesn't end well, right?
Oh, Ian, you and me both, buddy. You and me both.
So,
yeah.
Now because I'm a 4, though, I also have a hang up about authenticity, because authenticity is really important to 4s. And so, I was able in the moment just to kind of shift my energy away from this need to do that, and be able to say, tell you what, Ian, why not, rather than thinking about how you came across and are you the smartest guy in the room right now or any of that stuff, could you focus your energy on serving the people with whom you speak?
Yeah.
Right? Like, just get out of your own head about you. It's not about you. It's really about them. And, kind of make a shift. And I think with 3s, the ability to self-interrogate a lot, but with compassion and kindness and curiosity. Curiosity is maybe the operative word. Like, just to be curious.
Which we call nosy, right? That's the link to the nosy
I like
trait.
that. Yeah.
The courage to get insatiably curious.
Yes, I love that. And I think, I'm so excited. If you do go down the wormhole, you need to come back on in about 6 to 12 months and do a report from the field.
Definitely.
Okay, this is what I've learned. And oh my gosh, this is a game changer.
Well, I eat this stuff up anyway. So I'm already feeling like it's a game changer. Anthony, I think you're about to say something.
Well, I was going to say, if you could quickly break down the self-pres just to help people see why they actually, even though they're both 3s, why they actually do work so well together. Because you said, they're converted.
It's so interesting. So in my work, because I do a lot of coaching, I have I'm going to have to change up there who it is. So I have a woman I'm working with. She works in Silicon Valley, and she is a self-pres 3. She it's just so interesting. Like, a lot of times social 3s, and this is a generality here, but they're interested in symbols of success. They want to send the message of success out to people, right? And they are really on the hunt for admiration, right? And not appreciation, but admiration. And 2s would be more interested in appreciation, right? But the 3 is really on the hunt for admiration. And so success and the appearance of success is typically very important for social 3s. For the self-pres 3, it's upside down. So this woman, who, by the way, just sold a company for $350 million, right? And lives in Palo Alto. It's the whole thing, right? Like, just out of central casting. And she insists on driving an old Volvo. She lives in a very modest, relatively, it's not particularly modest by my standards, but by her standards, it's a modest home, right? She doesn't like to fly business class unless she's upgraded. You know what I mean? So part of what's going on here is, for this type of 3, is they are really focused on being hardworking, efficient, self-reliant, and they actually resist anything that looks like showing off or flaunting success. It's almost like if they were old world New Englanders. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, right? And so if you had money, the last thing in the world you did was talk about money, or flaunt it. And like, you never saw a Ferrari when I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. That was what's that?
I was saying, it's similar in Boulder, where it's very understated money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so that 3, here's where it gets hard, Carlina. So They have a vanity. They're vain about not being vain.
100%. And when I first started, I drove a Toyota Corolla like forever. I was well into six figures and I was still driving my Toyota Corolla. And when I first read my report, I was mortified. Like, I don't want to be a 3. I want to be seen as humble, and I might want to be appropriate and accepted, but I want to be perceived as humble.
Yes.
Definitely did not want to be a 3.
Yeah. So often I have a friend of mine who's a Mormon and he lives in Salt Lake City, and he says, it seems to me like all Mormons are self-pres 3s. He said, hardworking, efficient, self-reliant, good citizens. They go to the temple, they do all this stuff. And the last thing they want to do is come off as being a big shot, even though they're a big shot. You know what I mean? Like in from a worldly perspective.
Well, there's also this Larry David episode or Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, and I'm Jewish, so it's like I understand the vibe of all the Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes, where it's like there was a donation to the synagogue in this episode, and it had someone's name, and then the other one was anonymous, but everyone knew who the anonymous person was, and he's like, well, if everyone was going to know that it was me, if I could put anonymous, then I would have put anonymous if I knew they were going to know it was me.
So one of the things, by the way, that I told this woman, because she has a family office and they do a lot with philanthropy, and she actually, it was easy for her when I said, I think it'd be great if you started doing more and more anonymous donations, right? And it was easier for her as a self-pres 3 to do that because that's good.
Sure.
Like that's, you know what I mean? Whereas for a social 3, it would be harder. It would be like, yeah, but I kind of want to have influence with the board, or I want to have this, or I want to be able to do, to be able to hold them accountable to X, Y, and Z. But I also just want to be known for the person who gave that money. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's all kind of just good to know about yourself. Hey, Typology listeners, like you, I strive to know myself better and become a more compassionate and self-aware person, both at home and at work. Now, by far, the Enneagram is the best tool I have found for helping me to realize that in my life. And while taking an Enneagram test to help figure out your type is a great starting point, many tests out there provide content that is difficult to digest on your own, not to mention the fact that many tests are poorly constructed. That's why I've worked hard for the past few years to create a quick and research-backed assessment that provides straightforward insights specific for your type, subtype, and wing, while also being easy to understand. Simply put, my new Typology Institute Enneagram assessment offers incredibly useful information that you can use immediately to incorporate the genius of the Enneagram into every area of your life. And as a Typology listener, you can take 10% off your assessment when you enter the discount code Typology Podcast on the checkout page. Just visit typologyinstitute.com/assessments to get your results today.
Can I ask you something about how something I'm struggling with fits into my 3-ness?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So obviously it feels very 3 to have set out this massive goal to hit the New York Times bestseller list, which happened. And that to me there's so much to unpack there, so much to unpack about why that was important and all the work it took to get there. I left Google to make this a massive launch. I knew I wasn't just going to do it, in a little bit of my time. And so it's a huge achievement. It's like the Oscar of books. And it does take a lot of time, energy, sacrifice, money. It was hard on my family. I don't think I would ever do this again. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And yet, having achieved the Mount Everest of books, all I can focus on is the fact that another friend of mine whose book launched around the same time mine did has 4x as many Amazon reviews as mine, which means that its sales are 4x mine. And I feel like the publisher must think every day that I'm letting them down, right? Because all they care about is book sales. That's how they make money. My book isn't really doing as well. And my book is selling well. Like, let's be really clear. The book is selling well. But it's really, really hard for me to stop comparing. I know intellectually comparison is the thief of joy. I know that from a business standpoint, it's much more of a business tailwind to be a New York Times bestseller. No one's going to Amazon to see how many books you've sold, right? Like when they decide to bring you in for a keynote or not. So like it actually does have a business benefit to be a New York Times bestseller. Not a huge one, I will say, but some. And I cannot let go. I cannot stop checking the comparison of our sales numbers as interpreted by Amazon and Goodreads reviews.
Yeah. Well, having written a bunch of books.
It's time to be honest, Ian.
So sometimes I have gone into
As
a
he
bookstore.
straightens the collar.
Sometimes when I go into a bookstore, like for example, Jenny, we live in Boulder part of the time, right? Like this year. Like we were just there last week and we were there for a month this summer.
Oh, fun.
And so I was in the Boulder bookstore. One of my favorite. It's my favorite bookstore.
Did you flip your book from spine out to front out?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't want you to see my spine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might even bring a 3x5 card and write a review from one of the staff members and stick it on there, as if they were like loving on the book.
As one should.
As one should, right? But oftentimes it's so interesting as a 4, I go in and notice all of my friends' books that are on the shelf and why are they out of mine? And then I have to convince, or why don't they have mine on the shelf?
Sure.
And then I have to say to myself, well, maybe it's because they sold out. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what I have to tell myself to assuage my insecurities and my anxieties about, but 3s are very competitive, right? So competitive. And, I think that you're right when you say that, comparison, the little mantra I have is, I always say compare and despair. That's what I always tell myself.
Exactly.
Like, compare and despair. Like it's never going to be enough. Right.
Yeah.
And, I would say that, it's a great achievement to have a New York Times bestseller. I do have to remind myself all the time that it's a New York Times bestseller list, not New York Times best writer list.
Ain't that the truth? And we could spend 12 hours talking about that one, which is why I don't recommend it to a friend. There's basically, anyway, we won't even go into that, but yes.
Well, it's a little gamified,
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and as you know, there are firms whose only job is that they sell themselves on is, I will get your book to be a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
So there are some things, if you have the resources, the time, the energy, and the interest that you can do to, clear the runway to make that possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the nice thing about it is you might get a long tail out of it, because a lot of people, they sell a lot of books in one day and then the book dies, but they still make a list, right?
Sure, right, exactly.
So, I've just sort of gotten into the game of write a book that's going to be really good on a backlist for a long time, and keep it to that.
I was going to say, I think a good question to ask yourself as a 3 when you see something like that is, who am I apart from what I achieve?
Absolutely. And what I've been exploring a lot is just what it feels like to keep moving the goalpost on yourself. And when is enough enough? Mm-hmm. And I took a 6-week sabbatical this summer, and that really helped me take a step back and just feel more deeply what it's been like to leave Google, which was super hard for me to do and had so much. It required me, being reckless, which is one of the 9 traits, the courage to err on the side of action and take healthy risks. And it allowed me to just zoom out and settle a little bit. And it's hard for me to settle as a 3 because I am always moving the goalpost and I don't want grass to grow under my feet and all these things that, are, they're good. They've helped me be successful, but like we've discussed, there's a shadow side to them. Carlina, I'm curious to, go ahead, Ian.
I think 3s have a very unusual, and this is probably true of all humans, but 3s in particular, navigating the 2 halves of life. So if the first half of life is about achievement and about the construction of an ego, and the second half of life is about, it's about addressing different questions, right? It's like in the first half of life, it's who am I? Do I have what it takes to achieve? to conquer the world, and to construct a self, right? And then in the second half of life, the gaze turns to move from outward to inward. And you begin to ask more spiritual questions, not religious questions, but spiritual questions. How is that transition? Is that transition happening for you? Are you beginning to be a person who's asking, like, what does this all mean? And
it sure is.
All right,
sure
tell me more.
Well, on the sabbatical, I had this huge fear of not making enough money as an entrepreneur. I was like, I'm leaving my Google exec job to be what? A starving artist, a poor writer? Like, what am I doing as the breadwinner for my family? And Carlina, you've heard me talk about this so many times, in fear and anxiety, in drama, in hyperbole, in catastrophized futures, right? But that time off, and sometimes it's as simple as taking some time off, right? It's just a vacation, a weekend where you're not working. In my case, 6 weeks. I would call this brutal. The courage to, be really diligent about what you say yes to and what you say no to, and to take care of your body when you need to and make the right choices so you don't burn out. So in these 6 weeks, it really did help me zoom out and think, oh my gosh, like what I really want is to spend more time with my kids. What I really want is to build deeper relationships, because one of the shadow sides of a 3 is kind of brushing some of the relationships, the friendships, the cousins, the double dates with couples in Boulder to the side, saying, well, I'll think about that later. Like, eye on the prize, want to have a huge book launch, March 25th. And it really made me take stock of like the classic Harvard study, the longitudinal relationship study that says like the key to happiness and health in life is those relationships and the depth of those relationships. And where have I fallen short there? And where have I let myself down? Where have I let my kids down? And I only have 8 more years before Ari, my 10-year-old, goes to college. 10 more years before Noah, my daughter. Ari's 10, 8 more years for college. Noah's 8, 10 more years for college for her. And how do I want to spend that time? And so I dramatically reduced my revenue target. Like, I cut it down to like a fifth of my initial target, and made a conscious decision to live off of interest and use use interest as income, so that I could live more deeply in a way that better aligned with my new second half of life goals.
Yeah. That whole first half, second half of life thing is really interesting, because
it's so interesting.
So interesting. And I think, when it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think like, I wonder, because I'm this kind of guy, I'm a 4. I think it's maybe no accident that you've discovered the Enneagram at this kind of in the crease moment, between 2 phases of life, because I think what the Enneagram does really well at is helping you enter into a deeper conversation with the mystery of your own life.
Yeah.
And so that you begin to go, why am I living this way? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I feel sometimes like my life is a script that was handed to me and I'm just reading off it, instead of, this is really the life I want, So I think it's going to be like really interesting in 6 months from now, or whenever, when you've probably read every single book on the Enneagram that's available and have learned some things that you're like, whoa. And I bet you're going to start using it in your coaching.
Oh, I want to already. I mean, it's fascinating stuff.
It's so helpful, because you'll be able to speak into people's lives in a way that you just didn't have the vocabulary for before. And if you know their type, it actually saves you about 6 months of meetings.
I believe it.
You'll just be like, oh, I know a lot about what motivates you, about what you're scared of, about what your basic desires are. I don't know. Carlina, does that sound right to you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's, right before book launch, the book released in March, Jenny and I were on the phone almost every night for about 2 weeks at midnight, planning what we were going to do the next day, like optimize. And I knew she was coming up on the sabbatical. She came back a completely different person. And it's no exaggeration. She's now taking Mondays off, just like strategically planning rest. And We were in a season of heightened urgency and squeezing everything out of every moment. And so it was a season, but even thinking about how we were operating, I wondered, is this sustainable? Is this sustainable for the both of us? We knew that there was an end in sight, but I couldn't believe who she came back as, just talking about high net freedom instead of, the revenue. How much time can I have with my kids? Spending, calendaring relationships and hikes with people. It's really our working life is very different as a result of that time. And I've benefited from it.
I'm so glad. So let's just talk for a few minutes about wild courage, because I know I know those threes are keeping their eye on the clock. So the thing I was going to say, by the way, though, is, and this is a hackneyed trope, so forgive me, but it actually is true, that so much of the journey of the three is to move from being a human doing to a human being. And how do I make that transition? And I think that's part of that midlife transition is like, I've already succeeded at being a human doing. Now, how do I do this thing called being a human being? And I think that is so beautiful to watch when threes do that work, But the problem for them, though, is that we live in a culture that actually applauds and cheers on threes who are not doing that work.
Sure, of course. Well, and then there's a real trap of like, how am I doing at doing that work? How am I succeeding?
How am I doing at being?
Exactly. Am I succeeding at being high net freedom?
Yeah. There's a lot of layers here. There's a lot of layers. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's just talk for a minute more specifically about wild courage, because I've loved all of this. So you talk about these 9 traits that you see as being a kind of essential toward people going after things and getting what they want, right? Like and getting it. So walk us through those, and it sounds like you have a different definition than what might they be if you were just to hear them without an explanation.
Yeah, so I'll just cherry pick a couple of these. Shameless, for example, is the courage to find your swagger. It's about healthy audacity, right? It's about pushing imposter syndrome further away and recognizing that I am good at what I do. I'm talented, and I can share that with my manager. I can know my 3 superpowers, and I can say, I'm good at people leadership. I'm good at strategic thinking, and I'm good at building things from startup to scale. And we people struggle so much in a work environment. And then of course, in life also, just talking about what they're good at or saying, I'm proud. Like, Ian, what's one thing, I'll ask Anthony. Anthony, what's one thing you're proud of this week?
Proud of my daughter with how she handled a challenge at school.
Okay, I'm going to have you go again. That's something your daughter did. What's something that you are proud of? It's so hard, right? It's hard to be shameless.
Yeah. I had a very challenging work scenario, and I confronted the person I needed to confront today.
Oh, I love that. And that's a number of traits, actually. It's shameless, right? Because you saying it, that you're proud of that is awesome. It's brutal. It's taking a tough situation and addressing it head on. Brutal is the power of no, or the power of having that difficult conversation, because people pleasing pleases no one and it keeps us small. Brutality is cleaner, it's more effective, and honestly, it's far kinder. So I say with the brutal trait, cut through the bull and spare everyone's time, energy, and attention. And you absolutely did the right thing by addressing that situation head on, even though it felt difficult or challenging or maybe even reckless, right? And maybe it did feel selfish in moments because you were like, well, this is what I need to feel better about this work situation. So even in that one little anecdote, you kind of teed up all these other traits here, but even Shameless is about being proud of an action you took or a thing you said or a thing you did or a thing you asked for or just your talent or skill. But you also are just showing in that scenario all these other traits, right? You also displayed nosiness. Like I said, the courage to get insatiably curious because curiosity drowns out fear and pulls you closer to what's most exciting to you. So use it as a compass. You got nosy in that moment about like, where are you coming from? Or like, how are you seeing this situation? So that little example, I think, covers so many of the traits in and of itself.
Good.
That's good. Like it. All right. Tell us about some more of these traits.
Well, I'll do choose your own adventure. Should we talk about obsessed or should we talk about manipulative?
Oh, let's do manipulative.
Oh, why not, right?
We're all in on that.
Manipulative is the courage to build influence through empathy, because whether you're selling a product, an idea, or frankly yourself, your ability to win friends and allies and supporters is all about mutual benefit. So figure out what people want and get it for them. And, sometimes it can be as simple as, well, meeting your boss's boss, building a relationship with them. I call that managing higher, not just managing up. Managing diagonally, which is if you think of the people on the org chart who are up and to the right and left of your boss, that's managing diagonally. If your boss has 7 peers, meet 3 of them, right? And get to know them and have them mentor you. But sometimes it's as simple as how do you get people to say yes to you? How do you communicate with conviction and influence in a way that, again, expands the pie, doesn't redivide it? So, I talk about how my editor at Penguin Random House, we had to retitle our book at the last minute. It was called The Chase for a long time. I'm sure that has a lot of 3 vibes, the original title, The Chase. It's based on the fact that I met my husband by chasing the stranger off the New York City subway. But I loved how, quote unquote, manipulative my editor, Lydia, at Penguin Random House was when we were retitling the book. We'd gone through like 75 titles, and I was super bummed. I didn't want to retitle the book. I loved the name The Chase. I was so holding on to it. And so it was hard for me to be influenced to change the title of this work that I had done for 3 years. And rather than her emailing me new suggestions and just plainly saying, here are 6 more. I know this is a slog. I'm sure we'll get there eventually. She warmed the room with positive energy. She was manipulative in her ability to get me excited. So she would say things like, here are 6 more. I've bolded my 3 favorites. I think these are really strong. We are going to get there. And I know it's going to be even better than we can imagine it being right now. So even through email, with her word choice and her tone and her enthusiasm, she manipulated me into being excited about titling the book something that was hard for me to, it was hard for me to change. And think about all the applications of that. Getting someone to say yes to your project, getting someone to say yes to promoting you, getting someone to say yes to, giving you a raise, getting customers to, upselling customers if you're an entrepreneur. All these things require relationship building, warmth, energy, intentionality, honesty, and investment in people and in what would be a win for them and for you. And that's how I define manipulative.
Do you feel like, I have mixed feelings about the word manipulative, and I understand why you use it because it lands in a certain, I understand what you're doing with language and making it interesting and things like that. Yeah. And getting people to be curious, like, what does that mean? Because that doesn't sound, whatever. So, but there is that whole idea of tactical empathy, right? And empathy is a very powerful thing. I mean, it's with interpersonal neurobiology, as a therapist, I'm like acutely aware of how important empathy is, but also kind of sacred, in a way, like in real life. How do you avoid the pitfall of being manipulative in a kind of way that can be underhanded? You know what I mean? Like it can be like, I'm actually using empathy as a tool to get what I want. And that has a kind of a Machiavellian kind of quality to it. How do you avoid that ethically?
Yeah. So, and again, this is all, you're tapping into the trait traps right now, Ian. It's like, how do you not take this too far? How is this not Machiavellian? And I think it's a mindset shift that you talking about something great that you are doing and being shameless and being a little bit selfish can create a win for everybody. And also that most people, like, for example, let's say that you feel like it's selfish or manipulative to stand up on a stage in one of your 100 talks each year and get people bought into your work, or maybe even pick up a client or two, or get them to listen to your podcast, right? And so you want to build empathy so that you're likable, that you seem warm, that you seem like someone who could offer value to them. And I would actually say that's okay. Like, it's okay to have empathy for the sake of relationship building, because even if people know that that's part of it, it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it wrong. It's still, people like to feel good. People like to feel listened to. People like to feel your empathy. And so I think when it tips over to the other side, it's lying, cheating, stealing, right?
Right.
But if it's genuine and if it's honest, then I think it's perfectly appropriate. And I find that most people struggle not with taking it too far, Ian, not with like, oh, they're really, really trying to, do a once over here to win my business or to build this relationship. I find that many, many, many more people struggle with the imposter syndrome, with not dialing it up enough, not sharing their wins, not sharing a testimonial from a happy customer or a happy coaching client or a happy keynote client. And that people much, much, much more struggle with being like a 2 out of 10 on the wild courage versus being a 12 out of 10 on the wild courage. And there are some folks who do need to dial it back, but this book was written for the vast majority of the people who need the permission to dial it up to level the playing field.
I love that. That's a great place to end too. This is a book written for those people who need to dial it up and to really live into the success, however they may define that, like as a way of, I guess the word is optimizing how they show up in the world so that they get the most from life, But I have a question for you as a 4.
Yeah.
So do you feel like your definition of success is changing?
Absolutely.
Tell me more.
Absolutely. So much away from the money, the prize, the label, the acronym, the 3-letter acronym after my name, New York Times bestseller, or PhD, or Google exec, right? Some of those things I am, some of those things I'm not a PhD. But the next promotion, the level I am at Google, much, much, much toward the depth of relationships, the time with my kids, the quality of the time with my kids. Am I present during that time, or is my mind in a million different places rushing to that meeting with, Google colleagues in Singapore and Japan? Am I listening to how Noah's day was at school and who was making fun of whom on the playground today? Or am I thinking about that next company I need to pitch because they might buy a set of 200, books, and that bulk sale might help me hit the New York Times. And these are real things that really took up a huge amount of my brain space and took me far, far, far away from depth of conversation with my kids and John, my husband. And so my definition of success is much more just space to breathe and watering my flowers. I'm not saying I am who I am. My 3 is never going to turn into like the opposite of 3, right? But it is really, really special to see how I can evolve, and I'm just happier and healthier. Or I'm on the journey to being happier and healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a writer I like, and he says that he defines spirituality as waking up. Just simple. He says spirituality is about waking up. And I think that's one of the things that the Enneagram is really good at. It sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently, shakes us up and makes us go, why am I living the way I'm living? And is it the life I'm supposed to be living? Yeah. And helping us to realize a complete shift in our values and what it is that we want to extract from our lives. Right? So anyway, everyone listen to me now. I want you to go check out this marvelous, marvelous new book, Wild Courage, Go After What You Want and Get It, by our new friend, Jenny Wood. Carlina, thank you so much for being on and for adding commentary and editorial as we were moving through this conversation. Jenny, tell folks more about where they can get the book and learn more about you.
Yeah, books available everywhere books are sold, all formats, audiobook, ebook, hard copy. And I have a newsletter and tons of free resources. I think one of the hardest things we can do is be brutal and say no to things. I have a free guide. It's jennywood.com/say no, ITSJENNYWOOD. say no, and it'll give you scripts to turn down projects, say no to favors, so that you can optimize your life more. As a classic 3, optimize your life for high net freedom.
I'm so glad. Well, listen, everybody, we hope you got as much from this conversation as we did. We hope that you heard something today that moves the needle in some positive direction in your life. And until we meet again, may you have love, may you have joy, may you have peace, may you have healing, and may you have rest. Until next time.
Amen.